First Smoke family, we have a huge episode today. We got the homie Mossy Giant, and we're live at Crème Gràcia, Cannabis Week in Barcelona. Go to FSOTD.com, get hooked up with all our sponsors. Doesn't matter who you see on the pod. Get the behind the scenes. Get the stuff we can't show on YouTube. Get all that stuff, FSOTD.com, but let's get into it with these two. Let's get into the underground.
Stefan and I met many years ago at Cannabis. Stefan went through this time, a tough time, and he wanted to give the club a new impulse. And then he called me and he asked me, can you create for me the grand history of cannabis? And this felt like a project that was made in heaven for me. Police came here last year.
Yeah, a few times.
There's video of these guys in here. That was right before Cannabis. They came in, busted in the door to check everything.
And they spent hours.
Hours looking at the art. But you know what this does?
First Smoke family, we are live. This is Cannabis Week, and we're in one of the meccas in Cannabis, right? In Spain. We're at La Crème Gràcia in the heart of Barcelona, one of the top shops, social clubs in all of Spain. And we're here with two legends today. Please introduce yourselves.
Well, working on being a legend. I am Pieter van Tongeren, also known as the Mossy Giant. I'm an artist from the Netherlands. I'm based out of IJmuiden, close to Amsterdam. And I'm the one that created the art in La Crème Gràcia.
And I'm Stefan, the creator of this club, running it since 11 years now, and working with Mossy Giant on this historical and cultural project.
I mean, the first thing when you walk in the door, you're met with creativity and an energy, right? Because you can tell the amount of hours and detail and just the vibe. Like from the minute you walk in, this is one of the coolest social clubs. I always get that wrong because in America, it's dispensaries, which is different, right? Then you go to Amsterdam and it's coffee shops, and then you come here and it's social clubs. And I always have to bounce between. And it's funny because it's fitting because it is a social club.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
It is. Yeah,
it does not feel like a dispensary, and it also does not feel like a coffee shop.
It was the goal for us, and I can speak for Stefan when I say that, it is to create a place of communion where people can come together, enjoy art, enjoy cannabis, have a conversation, learn from each other,
make friends,
be inspired, make friends, and relax, have a smoke, and create a warm environment.
That's my favorite thing about Spain. That's different from Amsterdam. That's different from anywhere in the US. It's different from anywhere else I've been, is when they say social club, they really mean it.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I'm meeting people from Switzerland who are growers. I'm meeting hash makers from London. I'm meeting locals here that are some of the best hash I've smoked in at least a year or two.
And that's something.
The flavors that people are working on here are so different than a lot of the US stuff that I've seen that it gets very interesting. But social club, what's it like owning one of the top social clubs in Barcelona?
A lot of pleasure, okay, but also a lot of problems. You know, in 11 years, a lot of things happens. Changes of politics. You know, well, it's not a secure business if you want to do it, you know. You have to be very flexible. But if you have a project, you know, it's worth it. So definitely it's worth it. Or something I really wanted to do. I'm French, so it's impossible, you know, in France. So for me being here, yeah, a lot of pleasure.
So what's the attitude of cannabis in France? And then how does your journey get here?
Get ready.
Well, well, I lost all my jokers, I would say, in France. It means I cannot even walk with like a joint on me, you know. I would get...
In France.
Yeah, in France, yeah. France has gotten very tough on weed in the last...
very oppressive.
In the 90s, we started to have a lot of grow shops, a few cool stuff, you know, like demonstrations and movement for legalization. But then from the years 2000, it started to got really more on the right and like the tough politic. And now it's gotten really, really, really bad. It's like we're really going backwards. They're actually using the same lexical spectrum than Nixon. You could really take, the discourse of the French politics that take care of, drugs, and talking about, specifically about cannabis, and it's a copycat. So we're really going back where they're making tests to people walking on the street. They can test you.
Walk test.
That's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Walking, and it's wild because you now have complete legalization in Germany. And then right across the border, there's France being super oppressive. It's crazy.
And it's still the country in Europe where people smoke the most.
But you are
crazy. Yeah.
Wow, really?
So you are a cannabis refugee.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's a bit my point. Yeah, I feel I'm a cannabis refugee. I really came here because I really had no choice. I had the choice. Forget about cannabis or just go. So basically I left, or I'm a bit on exile, but I really, I appreciate it. I would go wherever liberty, gives me the possibility to have a normal life, actually,
Yeah, they say a great saying is go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated.
Yeah.
And it feels very much like that here. But still very oppressive and underground here. Like for you, it's an upgrade, right? But even people don't realize when you say like, no, weed's illegal in Spain. Like if you have a couple ounces on you,
weed's illegal in the Netherlands.
And so,
well, out of the club, it's totally illegal. I feel they still want us to be here because they could like really break the door any day. They could put heavy pressure on us. So we don't have a daily pressure. It's like it comes as a wave. Every year and a half, all of a sudden there's like something is happening. You can see in the press, there's like a campaign. They say they're going to be tough on cannabis.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all the clubs are being raided.
What happened last year here?
Yeah.
It's mostly political motivated, I'm guessing?
Definitely.
Change of politics, new mayor.
Change of mayor, change of, exactly.
It's so weird. Instead of setting a foundation and saying, here's how you do it legally, you want to get a license to do it, you already have this grandfathered in business. This is unbelievable what you built.
Yeah, we had a legal license when we opened the club. We had the licenses were for real. It was a cannabis license. But then in 2016 or something, they canceled the system. And now we're criminals.
Criminals making art.
Yeah.
No, but it's, yes, it's a frowned upon business, but look at what these businesses are doing. They're creating environments where people safely can come together, commune in the weed, enjoy art, tell stories, be creative, be inspired. I think
that's why we're trying to be more active here with a culture and the history of cannabis.
Yeah.
Because we feel we're trying also to protect us and to give us a certain legitimacy. We're not talking about the consuming. We're not putting like pictures of rosin or cool chicks, smoking, So we're really trying to only speak about the story. It's a historical club and cannabis club, and it gives us a bit of a protection, When the police comes here for a raid.
The police came here last year.
Yeah, a few times.
There's video of these guys in here. That was right before Cannabis. They came in, busted in the door to check everything.
And they spend like hours.
Hours looking at the art. But
do you mind if I take a photo of this?
They did. Because there's cops in here and they were pointing at the cops. But you know what this does? The art is exactly doing what it needs to be doing. It's police officers now looking at this situation like, why are we in there? And now, through the art, you might start a conversation and you start understanding each other better. And I hope this art can be a catalyst of this. With us telling these stories, people getting interested in the history of cannabis, something that is your history, my history, and a human history, because this plant has been an ally of mankind for thousands of years. And only in the last 150 years, these motherfuckers have changed it and made it a stigmatized, frowned upon, misunderstood plant. And only by telling this story, showing people that it has been part of human history for all times, maybe we can open up some eyes and make people accept this plant a little more.
I agree.
And also about building heroes.
Building heroes. Mila, right behind you. We cannot forget about the generation that is getting ready to leave us.
Sam the Skunk Man.
Sam the Skunk Man. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He just left us. We sat down with him in December, had a personal conversation, and we were flies on the wall for a few hours just listening to these guys talk. It was Soma, Mila, and David.
That's why.
And then we get the news that he passed away, and we were like, wow, we could have learned so much more, hear his story. But it's important that we give these people their pedestal now, and that we remember the work that they have done. Now that they're still here.
And sacrifice, I think.
Oh, bro, sacrifice to the max.
Just like you're speaking of.
The old guys definitely have had an incredible life. I had an expression a few days ago. I thought the cannabis was the last ethical adventure. And those guys were kind of, the conquistador 500 years ago who brought cannabis in America. They did incredible, like crazy things, horrible stuff. It was not ethical. Now the world is like round, and it's like they're kind of adventurer of modern times, but still being super ethical, because at the end of the day,
we're pursuing something that's good. Cannabis.
So it's a great adventure to be involved into, even though those guys really paid the price. Really, the prison, the RICO Act, and a bit everywhere. So I think it's very important to, after many years, decades, to just sit back, not speak just about the plant, but speak about the people of the plant.
I think you giving the flowers to them while they're alive is so important too.
Yeah.
We only congratulate them after a lot of people die.
Exactly.
It's like, no, clap for them when they're alive, because
they need
they're hurting still, a lot of them, because of what they've gone
been
through.
Stigmatized.
This generation is epical. It's really like incredible. All the guys from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, what they've done. It's you could make like a Netflix series and be like, it would be a success, and everybody would be amazed. So I think we're trying to normalize cannabis through history and
art
with a lot of other people. There's a Bugs Brown also doing his job also in his own way. So we feel yes, there's a movement, I think, of people getting interested. I saw your podcast with Todd McCormick, and I was fascinated also by his stories.
Kevin Jodrey.
Those were some of my favorites, where I got to sit down with. There's a couple we just did 3rd Gen Brandon. It's so interesting to hear about the California history of like Purple Urkel and some of this stuff where like, no, that guy got murdered over clones. And you start to hear these crazy stories about stuff we had never heard about. Like what? And that's kind of what this podcast is, right? It's like we get these gem lessons from you because of your hardships or your stories or some things you can tell on the pod that someone's going through or someone is going to go through, and reference back. Oh man, dude, this guy had dealt with this. He's the only other person I know who's dealt with this. Or, oh man, he already went through that. I'm going through that right now. Or God, he can save me time, money, my family. I just think those are the gems, but underlining is this story of like, Todd has this crazy journey. Same with Kevin.
Crazy.
Incredible.
They're all movies on its own. Honestly, it's adventure time.
There will be movies. I have no doubt. I really have no doubt that one day, our generation or the future generation will just sit back and just see this as a, like, I don't know, like another historical times that needs to, it's fascinating, if you calculate all the adventures of people, all the people involved, all the problems of the creativity. Yeah, I think it's definitely a big human chapter, cannabis,
Yeah, I agree.
And an ongoing battle.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what you're showing in your art. And one of the things I want to mention, like, I bet it's real crazy for cops and politicians to walk in, and when they realize that how kind of upscale the vibe is here.
Yeah.
And very like nice lounge. It's kind of like not high society, but you definitely feel you're getting served tea and you got nice drinks. You're having a smoke. Like it's not what you would think.
Right. It's not the stigma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you see the art and you start to sit here. I love this too, is because as I'm sitting here, just for people listening, and you got to get on the YouTube, people, because you can actually see the art. Like, I know a lot of people like to listen while they're working. Throw the YouTube on for certain ones, because there is a 30-foot mural, and we're going to show this during the pod. So if you're on YouTube, you'll actually be able to see it right now. But there is just this massive mural that, tell me what I'm looking at.
Well, you're looking at the Big Bang all the way to the left, up until modern cannabis era, cannabis age. And it's basically historical moments in time where cannabis played a role. And from the Big Bang up until the Chinese emperor, Shennong, the Greeks, and the Scythians getting the first, burning cannabis on braziers, first hotboxing. Indian culture, of course, with all the sadhus smoking bhang and everything.
The Afghan
and African cultures. And then we get into modern Europe with the club, the Hashishans, the first hash eaters in Europe that got enlightened by by eating hash, talking about philosophy, expanding the European mind, so to speak.
The biggest artist.
And that's where Hashishans came from, you said?
No. Hashishans, basically, it all comes from this legend, from Syria, of those, this sect that was called the sect of assassin, from which supposedly, but a lot of people say it's not true, that the word assassin and consumers of hashish in Arab is hashashin. Okay, so they say that the words are but some people say it's a kind of a propaganda to create a link between criminality and hashish. So it's a whole story. But the club of Hashishans, it's a club of artists in the 200 years ago. The biggest French writers, all the big, Charles Baudelaire, Alexandre Dumas, really the top of the top.
Top minds.
And they created a club of Hashishans. And they were like a fashion of, the Arabic culture. They were fascinated by hashish, and they started to use it. After Napoleon invaded Egypt 40 years before and brought hashish in France. That's Napoleon that created the first prohibition of hashish in the Occidental world, because all, alcohol was prohibited in Egypt. They couldn't get...
And all his soldiers.
First Smoke family, no matter the guest, we're rocking raw and Elements papers. Whether it's the Elements king size wide, the raw fatties without the crease, so you still get the king size wide, but with unbleached and uncreased. Something we've been loving on the show is the raw king size blacks. And when we're lighting up, the Phoenix. This is awesome. Flintless residue, windscreen with a poker. No matter what products you like from Raw, you can check out genuineraw.com, and that gets you to all their affiliate links to purchase these products direct from them to make sure they're raw authentic. Genuineraw.com, First Smoke of the Day sent you.
We're getting high on hash, and he didn't like that, so he prohibited it. First prohibition of hash in Europe.
So you had a fashion, so they mounted this club, and you have a lot of books that speak about this experience of hash in France, and it's really one of the big legend, and you can still visit the place.
And then you get, of course, we go to Louis Armstrong, and then the more modern time heroes, and of course, the American presidents that really fucked it up for all.
It's unbelievable, because this is what I'd like to get into a little bit, is that your journey of uncovering this history. We've never heard this, right? You're talking about Napoleon creating prohibition for hash.
Yeah.
I'd like to get into how is this something that you do in your part-time? What got you into the history of cannabis and now going this deep? And then now your partnership spawns from this.
I can tell the story very well. Stefan and I met many years ago at Cannabis. Just, hey, hello, how's it going? Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm an artist. And you didn't even have the club yet. He had plans of opening up one, and eventually you did in 2014. And we did some oddball projects here and there. He did growing equipment in Brazil, which I made a logo for. Then I branded the club. And at a certain point in time, there was the government here was being really strict on the clubs. So getting rid of money laundering, just cleaning the place, so to speak. Stefan went through this time, a tough time. And then you were put on the green list. You were free to run the club again. And then he wanted to give the club a new impulse. And then he called me and he asked me, can you create for me the grand history of cannabis? And he sent me 18 chapters, 18 points in time for me to visualize. And I was like, fuck, that's an amazing job. What a bucket list job as an artist. I was already working a lot in cannabis, and it was something that, but I wanted to give my art more meaning, tell more of a story. And this felt like a project that was made in heaven for me. And then we agreed on a price because, hey, I got to eat. and I have a family to feed. I feed, and
years of work ahead of you now too.
Yeah. And we realized quickly that this is not just making this one piece, but this is something we're probably gonna, if we can, probably gonna do for another 10 years, 15 years. There are so many stories to tell. We're 3 years down the road now. We did the first one, the overarching grand history of cannabis. And then our plan was, okay, let's focus on a culture that's really close to us, that we know a lot about, that we know.
And people are still alive.
And it was, we did the grand history of cannabis, the Dutch. That was our second book. And that was received very, very well. The people that are portrayed in the work were really excited. People became automatic ambassadors of the art and of the project. We made a book for it, so it explains the full piece of art and all the people that are in it and what they've done for cannabis and for the history of cannabis. And now this year, our most challenging chapter to date, Mexico. Because without the Mexican history, cannabis history, and also just the normal history of Mexico, you don't have American history and you don't have American cannabis. They play such a huge role in, it's a 500-year-old cannabis culture. And it's truly, truly fascinating what this country has gone through, and from the Spanish coming in till the Mexican Revolution, the Muralistas with Frida Kahlo, and then going into the modern era, of course, with cartels and all that. It's wild. And that it sets us up to the final book. And that's going to be the United States. The Grand History of Cannabis, the United States.
I can't wait because I don't even know the history that well. So the amount of knowledge that I'm looking forward to learning.
I am also absolutely terrified because it's going to be it's such a, it's a short, but very detailed, a lot of events, a lot of players, a lot of cool events, musicians, artists, writers, politicians,
smugglers,
modern movements. Yeah. Oh man. And, so we got our work cut out for us, but I feel to me, it ticks off all the boxes of being an artist. It pays bills. I feel truly creatively challenged, and I'm enjoying the work, and it feels like it means something. I think it creates a foundation in my work. It's not just a cool image, but it tells a story, and hopefully it can inspire people. People enjoy it. And let me not get too serious. It's also really nice to just get high and look at it.
It is, and what I think about your art is it's very different, because when I showed my mom your art, she was blown away. And she's not to say like she likes trippy acid style art or anything. She just thought, oh, wow, she's a teacher. And so from the teaching aspect, and I showed her the book, and I'm explaining this to her like, no, this is this guy, Mossy Giant. You got it. And I was a fan of your stuff where you were just doing more of like, not comical, but like the massive nugs and the people moving out of the nugs and trimming the nut. Like, I love that.
And I'll tell you this. When I finished this piece, and I was drawing from July last year up until end of January this year. So a good 6 months of just going at it. But it's also they're very serious subjects. And I enjoy to put a lot of humor in my work as well. So when I finished this, I truly had to dive into a fantasy world again, with the farmer, the hippie, the bear, the nugs, and have fairy tale fun, so to speak. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and put the bear in there again, so I can energize myself again to start working on the very, very serious stories of the United States.
It's like yin and yang, right? It's like balancing yourself out. Yeah, because this is very comical. It has a lighthearted feel, even on the oppressive stuff.
Dude, when I drew the prison scene with the Mexicans and the blacks being taken away to jail, the imprisonment, the unfair treatment, that's heavy shit to draw. But I think through the art, it's also more accessible. It makes it more lighthearted and easier to open up the conversation.
Very real. You know, that's because people know that. That's what we know as a lot of the history in the last 20 years is oppression. Yes.
And unfair treatment. And that's a huge part of it.
A piece like this, The History of Cannabis, how many hours?
I wouldn't even say it in hours. I would say it in months.
Months is
6 months.
Yeah, I was going to say 7 months.
So we basically, when Cannabis ends, we start working already on the next chapter. We have to design the book for Mexico first, which basically explains every facet of the work, so people can really dive in and learn about what it means. Because every piece in the art, everything that's there has a meaning. And then it's a whole year from concept to final drawing and book. I don't think the USA will go that fast because it's multifaceted, a lot of chapters, a lot of interesting things, but
Yeah, very dense.
very dense. And then it's research going back and forth. What are we going to put in? What are we not going to put in? Who's this character? And then throughout the process, you learn about more things and more of the story. We reached out to a lot of Mexican writers in history.
Until the end, there's
still
always
changing.
adding something. at the
Even
end,
with finished pieces from last year, we were like, this can be different. So it's an organic process.
It's going to be different than the mural. You know, the book is going to use everything from the mural, but also he's going to add new drawings into the book because we discover things all the time. It's quite crazy. So,
And how you're just researching this, correct? It's just hours and hours of research.
yeah, that's years before.
Yeah.
That's like,
And that's something Stefan does with another group of writers and researchers that are interested in this subject. And they help us fact check.
Journalists,
for the Dutch, we had
historians.
Dirk Bergman, who is a Dutch activist and journalist and
from
cannabis
the High Tea
fighter.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Derek. He helped us
He's
edit the whole.
awesome.
He's just
Yes,
a
yeah.
database, the Wikipedia of weed. He knows everything, and he's super. We had him in here yesterday. We had Dutch television here, recording Derek talking about the Dutch cannabis culture, and he puts on the hat, and he is made for this.
He is. When
Very
we got
passionate.
on the set with him, for everyone listening to this pod right now, if you want to go way back, go to our High Tea podcast. It's the first time we ever did a 2 podcast set where it's like 2 podcasts getting together. But when he started speaking, I said, oh, this is going to be a great
He's
one.
very knowledgeable, and you put a quarter in, and you'll be entertained. Yeah. We had him here last year, bro.
That's the best way to put
it. We had him here last year, so the Dutch was hanging over there.
Yeah.
And basically, we put Derek in front of the drawing, and he was just eating people up. Like, oh yeah, he's just sucking them in and telling the story. Like this is this, and this is that, and he knows everything.
And detailed, so it feels like he's telling you this story.
Yeah.
He's laying out this history in a great way. He's a phenomenal presenter, and that's why the podcast was so fun. But I see now why you're so passionate, because if you have guys around you like that, and right, and La Creme, and you got this going on, and they're doing this research, which what gets you into that? You a part-time researcher?
Visit his house. It's basically a library.
So you're enthusiastic about this side.
I've always loved history since I'm a kid. You know, since my first images, I think, were from history books. So I've always, loved history. And I think one day I just realized how cannabis was at least as interesting as the histories classical histories that we see. So when you know a bit more about cannabis and you see that it's like 12,000 years of history, that it went from Central Asia, did all Eurasia in 10,000 years, went to Africa, colonized all Africa, then colonized the Americas. So it's like it was a long process that involved a lot of people and was involved also in wars, revolutions, like the dramas of humanity. And it also has been a part, like the domestication of horses, like 7,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago. The rope, was a fiber of hemp, was very essential. And that's
to be able to tame the horse. That's a significant moment in history. To be able to ride a horse, you can go farther. And cannabis played a role in that.
You can hunt different animals now too.
Yes,
all
you're
kinds
more powerful.
of stuff.
You can go farther.
The invention
You can
of
fight better
Without the rope, they couldn't do that.
And the invention of paper. The first paper was done was hemp. So you can see like a lot of things happen. And after the narcotic things, it appears a few times in a few religions.
Has it always been this battle of illegality and prohibition?
No, not always. Even though you can find, the first prohibition is in the Arab world, roughly like 700 years ago, So you had the first prohibition for religious reasons. After the first prohibitions are really in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah.
So we had no prohibition for a lot of history. How was it looked at?
Well, the first prohibition is 800, 700 years ago in the Egypt or in Jordany. After you have Napoleon 225 years ago. After it's in Mexico. But before cannabis was officially prohibited, you had cannabis had been adopted by the Aztecs, and they gave it another name.
Yeah.
So the first prohibition of cannabis is not under the cannabis name in America. Okay, it's under this Aztec name that I can't even pronounce. It's written.
It's in the work.
Yeah,
it's a difficult
That's
name.
what's amazing. You go that detailed into this.
And for years, they were looking at this plant. They were observing the Mexican people using this plant. People Zintli. That's what they call it, Zintli. We're going to put it up in the frame for people to read it.
Yeah.
And for years, the people observing the Mexicans using this plant weren't realizing that this was cannabis. They just gave it a different name. This name.
Cultivators, Under Canopy Lighting is changing the game. And with that, Faven Under Canopy Lighting. They're one of our premier sponsors, and it's a brand we truly believe in. If you want to check out favenlighting.com, you can get all the answers to what Under Canopy is and is how it's changing the game. And guess what? You're family, so we hook you up. The code is FSOTD, and you get hooked up with Faven Lighting. They put together a full layout of how you would set your facility or grow room up using their Under Canopy lighting. Whether you're using CMH, double-ended, fluorescence, LEDs, it doesn't matter. Faven Lighting has you covered. Go to favenlighting.com, use the code FSOTD, get hooked up, and change your grow game. Come on, cultivators.
Basically, the Spanish were only interested in the fiber. So when they brought the seeds in Mexico and started to grow hemp, the people growing it were the Aztecs, or I don't like to call them Indians, but the Mesoamericans. But them, because they had such a botanical culture,
they knew how to grow.
They were interested by the plant. They were like, the most interesting is not the fiber.
They gave this hemp plant, this industrial species, to a people that knew how to cultivate plants.
And that had an interest because they
really
were
well.
Yeah.
So they got a new plant, a new species, and they went wild with it. And they discovered new phenos over time, different variations in the plant, and they discovered the spiritual healing side of cannabis.
Yeah, they were super interested by the effects of this plant, and they integrated it in their in the cults, in the rituals, very, very quickly. And for hundreds of years, they used it. So the first prohibition is with this Aztec name, okay? And after the first cannabis prohibition under the cannabis name is in 1900, way before the America. They a bit invented everything. They invented the prohibition, but they also legalized it. The first ones, we legalized it also, and prohibition again. So
it went back and forth a lot in Mexico.
It's a very complex story. We're working with a historian, a Mexican historian, that wrote really a lot of books. Like
basically our Mexican Derek Bergman. He helps us edit, and he's you are very much inspired by him.
Juan Pablo Vallejo, incredible. He's also on the
he's in the work
because he's also a militant, and he did really a lot of things from the 80s. An incredible guy that really helped us a lot on the project.
It's so interesting to dive into. You think of cannabis history, and then you realize there's so much chapters within that for each country.
Yeah. Every culture has its own.
It's its own story.
Yeah, it's its own story.
Our dream is to have really, a lot of books with. That would be our ultimate dream.
It's so crazy to look at this and now know the research that went into it, to know the amount of art hours that went into this, the amount of adjustments as you start to discover more history within these other stories, or like, damn, we didn't even talk about this guy. We need to make sure he's in this. It almost seems like it'll be 15 or 20 books at the end.
Yeah,
and what's cool about it is it almost, not to get religious, but it's very biblical, meaning like when you're trying to teach a child something or someone and you're trying to appeal to, not every student learns by just reading. Some are creative, some are visual learners. When you could place a book in front of them like this and say, here's the entire history of cannabis, and then here's the chapters within each country. Unbelievable. Like, how would you not have this on your bookshelf, in my opinion? Like, I cannot wait, because I don't know the history like that.
Well, I think because cannabis is so stigmatized still in most places in the world, and people are so quick to judge of what a cannabis user is. Sometimes a cannabis user, they're put into, most of the time, they're put in a box. They have a certain label. But I think if, as a user, as a consumer, as a patient, or just recreationally, I think if you can read these stories and how intertwined they are with human history, that this plant is our ally, our friend, I think you can be proud to be a cannabis consumer and a cannabis patient. It's not to be frowned upon. This plant should never have been stigmatized.
No, it's inspiring.
Never been made illegal.
It's inspiring.
It's inspiring, man. And I hope with these books and these pieces of art, we can maybe a little bit, but over time, lift that stigma. Or at least make you proud, Bryan proud, to be working with this plant.
Bro, I could show this to, it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. It doesn't even matter if you approve of the plant or disapprove. You could, this is why I'm so enthusiastic about having these books, is because you could go through this as an artistic piece, learn the history, and anyone who's into actually learning or knowledge would get something out of this. And like, for everyone listening and watching, we're literally live in the social club. See, you're going to hear people ordering the Amnesia Haze or the White Widow. You're going to hear all that stuff in the background. Like, yeah, there are people really picking up Isolator right now. Like right now.
Club is open.
Yeah. So this is a dope pod. We actually get to do this. So we just added someone to set. Get on the YouTube, yo, if you're listening to this, because now you can really see the visuals and what we're doing.
My name is Bryan Box Brown. I'm a New York Times best-selling artist and a author and a Eisner Award-winning cartoonist. My most famous work was a biography of Andre the Giant, the pro wrestler. And at some point, I did a book about the history of cannabis called The Illegalization of Weed in America. And this was like when weed started becoming legal in the States. And but like I was mostly interested in legalization as it was happening in the US, but it's hard to make a book about current day shit, because like it takes like a month, years for books to come out, really. So like anything I would write about legalization would be outdated by the time it came out. So I started doing a comic strip. This is like comics, like what you'd read in the newspaper, every week about legalization and stuff going on. So it's kind of like current history as it's happening.
What's cool is, for everyone listening to this, if you're on the YouTube, and I know I keep saying this because we're talking about a visual, with both of you guys' art, you have to see it.
Sure.
It's easy to talk about it and kind of start to pick. It's nothing like you think. You have to see it. It's unbelievable.
And part of it is like what you guys were talking about. Comics like helps people read, reluctant readers, and like also just because it doesn't feel like reading. Visual learners.
I'm a visual learner. I'm not someone that can read it and then fully. So, but if you give me pictures, if you show me a graph, if you kind of, I'm in, I'm done.
The barrier is very low, because if I say to you, hey, read this book, you'd be like, yeah, sure, I will. Yeah. But it's a bigger pill to swallow than to look at a piece of art where you might be inspired to ask, hey, who is this character? And then you find out somebody in the club that has the book or knows the information, and then you start having a conversation. And now all of a sudden you might spark the interest of someone saying, I'm going to buy the book and I'm going to read and I'm going to inform myself more and learn about these stories. And I think same with the comic strip. You digest a difficult topic into something digestible and not easy to understand, but it's an easier way of consuming the information.
Because I was like, so I'm an East Coast, I'm from Philly. And I grew up on the East Coast, whatever. And I was watching like legalization happen on the West Coast, and then being like, what the like, when's it going to come here? And then when it finally got to the East Coast, it was so fucking mangled by the time it came. Like legal weed, like the weed market in New Jersey looks literally nothing like California, like at all.
We used to think that if it was really compressed it was the good weed because the best weed they got was so compressed from being vacuum sealed.
No way.
That was always the best.
Yeah.
And if you had homegrown, they'd look at you like, why is it so fluffy?
Really?
I swear to God. And you're because everything they've bought for years had already been vacuum sealed so tight that all the buds are so compact.
And that was the best.
That's what they've got. And they're like, that's what, so what's this weird stuff? And you're like, that's homegrown. That's fire.
That's
and still in New Jersey that has legal weed, homegrown is illegal in Jersey.
How insane is that?
Yeah. And it's all the New Jersey mindset of like, New Jersey is the most gangster state in the country. It's like mob based. So like they see it as, we want you buying the legal weed in Jersey. I don't care if it sucks. I don't care if like we set it up so only like the 15 richest people in Jersey are the ones growing the weed. They don't know anything. You know what I mean? Not everybody, obviously, but I'm just saying that's the way it is in most East Coast states. And like California only like the Prop 215 like allowed for so much more. And then they legalized recreationally and like half the market disappeared. Like everybody left. Because like it's impossible. Like if you look, I would say like if you look at the hemp market, right? Like the THCA market, that's what the weed market really should. I mean, it's not the best, but it should look more like that because it's like you can start like a hemp business without going through a million layers of red tape and rigmarole.
There's interstate commerce.
Yeah.
There's taxation. There's a foundation for actual business to be done and thrive and actually pay taxes and do what you think we would want out of a professional business that we're trying to have that, you know.
And it's like the same people that talk trash about like free market economy and all this stuff are the ones that also want to put the most regulations on everything. So everything is like not free market at all. Where it's like you have to be huge money to get in at all. It's not about quality in any way.
It's a different market.
That's why I also like to work with legacy guys.
Yeah.
Because there's artistic freedom for the artist as well.
I prefer to work with too.
Because there is no packaging requirements. We can just do whatever the fuck we want and make it the coolest shit ever. No rules. Let's go. I love that. And
like
with legalization, that also like the experiment in Holland too. They cannot have nice branded bags, but I think that artistic side of cannabis, it's part of it.
Oh, it's crazy coming out of every shop and being like, how do they not have their own branded bags or branded
look what you
packaging?
did here, man.
Oh, you have to. Yeah.
Canada is the same way.
You spend time making this.
Oh, even
nice.
if you zoom in on the rows, there's actual paisley like they do on bandanas.
Yeah. I see.
So like, there's bandana inside the rose. And then the other one's a yin and a yang rose. We just designed roughly. But yeah, just incorporating. This has honestly become one of my favorite aspects about the industry is if you're a creative and you're a cultivator and then you start to realize like, damn, I get to brand and market and everything up here gets to somehow get interpreted onto here. And
if you look at
like making the whole package. Yeah.
If you look at people buy wine based on what the label looks like all the time and beer is like craft beer cans. So yeah, everything.
And it's and some people, it's too branded. No, if you do it subtly, if you do it right, and if I can tell you spend time on it and you put your heart and soul.
And I'm still like, it's funny because the first version of this they did a way better job. And this one I was like, because they did
it looks good.
A foil behind it though. But you know how as an artist, you're like, man,
you only knew that there was a foil before. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I'm excited by honestly, I think cannabis packaging, I know like, there's people like it's overboard at this point. Like it's insane. Everything comes with a toy.
If you do it subtly, you do it right.
It's not to take away that we're not, and this is where people get confused. They say, oh yeah, but worry about the quality. No, if the quality is already there, now we're talking about the branding and marketing. We're not saying like, oh, just brand and market anything. Because that's where people always want to go with it is the negative. It's saying, no, you have this amazing product. Now let's brand and market this.
Yeah.
And if you then also involve the real human beings, not AI, and you get to work with an artist that now can make a living as an artist, I think if you're in cannabis and you have grown a seed to a full harvestable plant, you went through an artistic process. You went from nothing to something, a blank piece of paper to a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah.
You get to harvest it. Now, that the next step after the curing, you also got to make sure that's it ends up in a nice house, beautifully designed. It's also part of the process. And helping people, artists, photographers, video makers, like what you're doing with this whole team, you're putting creative people to work, man.
Oh, dude,
That's sick.
One of my favorite things to do is
and you're working
watch
together.
creatives create.
Yeah.
The shopping spree begins. Cultivators globally trust Drip Hydro. Whether your nutrient solution is in powder form or liquid form, Drip's got you covered. And you know we treat you like family. First Smoke 10 is the discount code. Whether you're in store or online at driphydro.com, doesn't matter. We get you hooked up. driphydro.com. Clean, effective, affordable. First Smoke family, are you a commercial cultivator or retailer and you want to get heavily discounted hydroponic equipment? Grow Generation Pro Portal just launched. The Pro Portal gives you exclusive, heavily discounted access to top-tier hydroponic products direct. It's a one-stop shop for all your hydroponic needs, spanning every category you rely on. Plus, they ensure fast, reliable delivery anywhere in the United States. Need a customized quote? Want to track your spending? The Pro Portal lets you do both, and so much more, including providing easy access to your partners with its cutting-edge features. It's designed to meet the needs of today's fast-paced industry. Ready to take the business to the next level? Go to growgeneration.com and sign up with the Pro Portal today and get hooked up.
It's a very similar process. Growing it, when I talk to growers,
It's super
so
similar. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You go through the same stages. Like with these works too, I go through peaks
Constantly.
and valleys.
Yeah, yeah.
I sometimes I got to
People
fucking
are
draw
very,
this.
growers are very, same with artists where you're like, I'll come out and look at your plants and I'm like, this
Damn,
is
looks
amazing.
great.
Yeah.
And
the
you'll be
growers
like,
are
nah.
I don't know.
yeah.
It's the same thing with
Three
artists.
harvests before this, it was way better. You're like 9 months ago.
It's
And they're
the
like,
same,
yeah.
It's the same comment as you just made about the foil. Yeah, the first batch had better foil.
And shout out to Jay Slap Up. No, but like, it's the little things where like the first batch, I don't like that it's a flat. They did this foil where this was reflective and the rows, just little details of like where I was like, wow, there's just the devil's in the details, and the details for artists and creatives matter so much. And when you can get your vision on canvas,
Sure,
with the details, which is honestly what you do best, is details.
it's good for weed smokers.
It makes all the difference in the world. Like the details make all the difference in the world.
It's the finishing touches. It's like the best part, really. I know when I'm drawing, like when I'm painting, my favorite part is like the last two brush strokes, kind of like where you're adding the last bit of it, because that's really where you're actually doing
the signature on the back.
And you know what happens then? I grab it, and it goes in my drawing table, and I don't look at it ever again.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Interesting. And so then all your originals you keep.
They're all in with some people special. I have sent them over. I did a job for Jay Plant Speaker out of Oregon. He is a greenhouse grower in the hills of Oregon. Long beard, lives with the deer, outspoken guy.
And when you say lives with a deer, like literally has deer in his house and
on
stuff.
his farm,
Yeah.
wild deer. They trust him. He trusts them, and they come by his house. He gives them food. He lives out there with his wife, Gina, the green goddess. I think she calls herself Green Goddess Gina. And they are just living a farm life, growing cannabis under sunlight in a greenhouse.
It's crazy because he does 3 plants or something.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of the industry. I pay attention to everybody. Like, I pay attention to your art before this whole thing started.
Amazing.
Or at least you started posting about it.
Sure.
I knew you from doing, like, the fairy tale land, like you said, where it's just, like, it's unbelievable nug with different cultures living in it and things happening to it. And I love this style. But yeah, Jay is crazy because he had gotten raided years ago or had an issue. And then he was like, oh, I get 3 or 4 plants or whatever the plant.
And he just grows these monsters.
The whole 60-foot greenhouse is like 3 plants.
He's growing this old sour diesel cut that he got from it. Well, and I wrote down in my sketchbook, even before we done the work, that I wanted to work with Jay Plant Speaker. People talk about manifestation. Well, here it happened. Literally a week later, he sends me a message. Hey, bro, can you do this? And he sent me one of those drawings of the farmer and the bear and a giant plant. And then I asked him, listen, could I go a little deeper? Your story is too cool. Let's put the J plant speaker world out there on a print. And then he created this for him with, of course, the central element being the giant plants that he grows in his living soil containers, 200-gallon smart pots with
200-gallon smart.
I don't know, maybe even more, but just full of worms. And I think it's cool. And then he's one of those guys that I sent the original to. He has the original ink drawing. And then we did a screen print edition, which we still have not released yet. And with him, I think we just talked about this before the podcast. With him, when I sent him the colored version and the black and white version, he said, bro, me and my hash maker, we really were tripping out on the black and white version. And so he wanted that one. So we made 2 print editions, one in a 2-color tone and one full color. And it was just a dream job to do. Same with the piece I did for Mila, and just visualizing all these, let me put it this way. Back in medieval times, the royal houses, they would have painters alongside them to visualize their lives and as royals, the big Rembrandts. And I hope I can be that for cannabis. Give these people like Mila their grand pictures and be their royal painter, so to speak,
I could 100% see that. And we have this cool building in LA that projects, like, the walls turn into, and they'll do like art and stuff. As I visualize what you're doing, I'm like, man, this would be unbelievable wrapped on these walls, and you kind of walk through the history. It's just so sick.
What's the best about this situation where we're sitting right now? This is the way this work is supposed to be experienced. You need to be able to sit on a comfortable couch amongst friends and be able to smoke. I wish we could do this all around the world.
Yeah, it's how you have it set up here.
It's amazing that we don't have this culture in the US.
It's incredible. It's incredible that you guys, and if it would be there, it would be fucking great.
Yeah.
It would be great because you guys are so enthusiastic about weed.
I think that
it's incredible.
There's some like weed culture really in the US needs this because it's getting like super, like, people don't really even share joints that much, like everybody's got their vape pen, like, where, it used to be all about like you pull out a blunt at the party and everybody, you know what I mean?
No, it needs to be social clubs. We need what you have and you need what we have. We have this infrastructure of, it's funny because it's so American, just kind of retrospectively looking at it, because it's like production, money, fund this baby, licensing, produce. Like, it's like, of course we got the production down, but the actual enjoyment of it, that's lost. And like the actual consumption and shit, I figure that the fuck out. But the producing and the part that makes the money, we got that figured the fuck out.
You're on your own otherwise.
It's very American, that part, where it makes total sense that in Barcelona, which is a very social place where you go out to dinner at 11 p.m. and people are huge dinner tables and everyone's sitting at a bar together. They don't even know each other. That you would have social clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what would thrive. And it's like, we're yearning for what you have, and you guys are yearning for, like, I wish we could have some growers here that could actually, do some production style or have licenses. And we're like, we got that figured out. But it's so much of like, we have what each other needs. And this is what the politicians, and this is what I think a lot of people don't realize, is just by having American social clubs like this, the amount of collaboration and money, I know people don't want to hear that, but the amount of money that would get made from bringing people like you, Mossy Giant, over, because now we want to design this and we want to do, and brands want to do this, and we would integrate so much more with the world of cannabis if we could get this, because now people travel from the US for this, for Mary Jane Berlin, for Amsterdam, because we don't have any of that stuff.
We don't. Yeah. Meanwhile, it's like we have just so much weed, but it's like you gotta
money, baby. We got the production now. I'm telling you,
we're all in our own little tiny social circles. Because, like, hey, man, how many people can you have over at the crib? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but it's still it's not this, right? Like, as we sit here, there's this massive. It's almost like watching a movie. I consider, like, but I'm sitting here and you could smoke a joint here and then go get a drink and then go sit over there. Down the couch and get a completely different experience for what you're looking at. Like, that's what's so epic. I love how you guys set this up. When did this go up? And like, this is obviously ongoing. Like, where are you going to put the rest of this?
Well, that's the problem.
You're running out of space.
That's the next issue. We filled the club. This is the first time, like, we've been working towards this for the past 3 years, filling the club. It's full now. But we have a big chapter that's coming, the USA. So, yeah, we'll figure that out in due time.
Creme needs a bigger spot,
You're going to have to build another wall.
Yeah, knock this thing down, bro. We need double this.
Well, you know, hopefully, like these stories too, like the Mexican story and later the USA, will also get us to those countries, to events, hopefully have a traveling exhibition, sell books over there, sell books in the United States, go to events, meet people. Also for the research, you know, we gotta talk to people. Go to Emerald Triangle, talk to some OGs there. We love to talk to Todd McCormick.
Kevin's a great one.
Kevin Jodrey. Absolutely.
Oh man, there is rich history when you start to go down, and then you start to talk about the Bay Area history with cookies, with gelato.
Yeah.
And like what the Bay played now in the whole world, where you go anywhere and you're like gelato, and you're like, oh yeah,
it's everywhere.
There's also crazy, like,
runts.
There's crazy New York history too, because like there was people on the East Coast doing shit, and they're coming out of the woodwork because it's legal in New York.
Yeah, look at the biggest strain probably in the UK. Let's talk Skittles. Where's that from? Man, that's from Modesto damn near. That's North Bay. That's the Bay Area. Like, we could go on and on about how important the Bay Area was to cannabis culture right now in the whole world. Like, you could go to Thailand. I bet most of the strains in Thailand came from the Bay Area.
Oh, dude,
not even like SoCal.
When I was in Brazil last year, like you could, you know, I was talking to I was there for a Comic-Con, not a weed con, but I found weed, right? But the top level stuff you could get down there was California weed.
Yeah, that's the part that when I went to Amsterdam, that I was always like, I want the locals menu. And then we had to travel actually into The Hague.
Yeah.
And we went and grabbed some local flavors. And we went to
Cremers, Dizzy Duck, or Cremers?
We went to Dizzy Duck. Yeah. And so I knew it was a crazy name. Yeah, no, we linked up with the owners of Dizzy Duck, the older gentleman, his father, and I think the son as well.
Mike and Q.
Yes. Yeah. And so we actually went out we did a medicated dinner with this like German chef who came in, and they did nano infused, or where that hits you within 20 or 30 minutes of eating the actual edible food. And he did like a 5-course meal, and we did it with Dizzy Duck.
Nice. They're great people.
And they get good local weed. Like, the stuff that they had was the best local stuff I had in all of Amsterdam.
They're doing a good job over there.
Yeah.
They're running a tight ship. Absolutely. I'm doing a art collaboration with them this year as well.
That makes sense, because they're really involved in the culture. They embraced us in the beginning just by being like, yeah, let's do some stuff with First Smoke. Like, what do you want to do?
Nice
and
people.
Way back. Yeah. Talk about Amsterdam and growing up there. I mean, for all of us living in the US, we always looked at that's the Mecca, and California slowly become that, right? But it's always been Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's a mythical place. Absolutely.
Or Holland.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have some of that, what you have in Amsterdam everywhere in Holland.
That's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
Some of the best coffee shops are outside of Amsterdam.
Yeah, they're stepping up their game for sure. Like The Hague, Den Haag is definitely a city that is doing a really good job. I have a friend that I work with, King Size. He's a rapper from The Hague, and literally a big cannabis guy. And he's from that city, and they're really, you know, there's good growers coming from there. There's active coffee shops with nice menus, very like different strains, but also from the Dutch growers, not only imported or exotics from somewhere else, but also the Dutch grower, which is important. And I did not grow up in Amsterdam, but it was also Amsterdam. When I studied in the United States.
Oh, you did?
When I moved to the United States when I was 18, I told people I'm from Amsterdam. And Amsterdam always has something elusive about it. When you say that, especially in the United States, oh, you're from Amsterdam. And it always refers to weed. Doesn't matter if they're smokers or not. People know it's synonymous to weed.
For sure.
Worldwide. And the funny fact was I never smoked before I came to the United States because I was into high-level sports. I never had anything against it, but it was never on my path because I was just playing basketball. And I got a full ride scholarship to go play Division I basketball in the United States in Evansville, Indiana. And that's where I first smoked had my first experiences with weed, where I ran into the book of Jack Herrera, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And that's when I realized, maybe I should start making art for this plant. And the word Amsterdam is magical to most people.
You think of weed, and then you might think of the red light district, like those two things.
Absolutely, that's a good second one. For some people, a first one.
Yeah. And so how did you guys link up though? Because
I saw his book, Illegalization of Weed in the United States, and I bought it because I thought it was fucking cool, and we were also learning about American history, and he does a really good job in this book of very precisely and clearly laying this out. It's a really good book. And then we became fans. I showed it to Stefan, and Stefan became a fan of Bryan's work as well. And then we invited him. Why did you come down?
See, I mean, the thing with that book when I was doing it was like legalization was happening everywhere. And I think people were getting so excited by legalization and the money that was going to come from legalization that they were forgetting the fact that like this was completely fucked up, like from the beginning. Like,
yeah,
I think like a lot of people have a perception that like weed became illegal, and people are like, all right, people in the 1900s and like when they were making this legal didn't know like about what weed was, but like that's not the case, really. They all knew. They just were racist, like essentially. Like, I think that like people forget that. Like, it's just completely shouldn't have ever been illegal in the first place. Like,
they use this as a tool for racism and
for oppression.
Yeah.
It's the same thing kind of now, like where we got rid of in most states you can't where it's legal, smelling weed you can't, that's not an excuse to search their car, right?
Yep.
And that thing is like one of the most important aspects of legalization, because that was an excuse to get people that didn't even smoke weed harassed, because they'd be like, oh, we smell weed. That gives us an excuse to do anything. And if you look at like how many people are in prison in the United States, a lot of that started with I smell weed.
My search and seizure when I got arrested, right, of stems, I have an open bed truck. Open bed, nothing in the back.
Good old boy.
Yeah, clean. I drive a clean truck. The dog hit on the back of my truck.
Yeah.
And then they searched the cab, and then I got obviously arrested, right? But it's funny, though, if you think about that, you're like, no, the dog hit on an open bed truck. Yeah, but if there's nothing in the back, I guess the thought is, well, you must have had something in there then.
Yeah. No, well, if the dog knows, then it must be right. Like,
oh, dude,
come on,
you do this right here, and the dog.
Yeah, exactly.
How dumb are we? Come on, now we start to realize, like, all these assassinations and stuff, or most of all this crazy shit happened in the U.S. is all us.
Yeah.
But the history of cannabis in the U.S. is going to be one of my favorite chapters, obviously, because I am U.S., but it's so crazy.
Yeah. Truly so brutal. And it's like, there's like a 2-tier system, basically. Like, if you're for a long time, for many years, like all of prohibition, basically, like if you were wealthy, you could pretty much like handle anything that happened. But like, if you weren't, you get arrested for weed, you can't pay your...
That's life.
Yeah, exactly. Like that
parallels everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same here with like, how much trouble you get in when things hit the fan. It's like you have enough influence and you produce enough money and enough jobs, things start to just open up.
Right. And so it ends up being just
he's a good guy.
You're good.
Let's call him a good guy.
And it ends up just being
you
a tool,
an invoice next week.
A tool for the oppression of the working class people and poor people or whatever.
Have you guys made art together yet?
Nope.
We haven't.
Oh man, have you talked about it?
Nope.
Not really.
Interesting.
No.
Do artists collab a lot? Like we see,
I have to be sometimes, but I really prefer, like, I'm always so in my own world with these drawings too.
Yeah,
you might have.
It's hard to buy. No,
how would you? Yeah.
Comics people are always like, writer, artist, and stuff. But like, I do a style of cartooning that's called like auteur cartooning, where I do everything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like Marvel Comics, it's like there's a writer, there's an inker, penciler, and all this different stuff. It's like comics by committee, and like.
Yeah.
Auteur style is where you do everything. Where it's like, directors
So then that's like what you do as well?
Well, in a sense, Stefan is my editor. Like he sends me not an editor. He sends me the information, but I get complete freedom in how to turn it into the artwork. He just sends me in a general direction. Like he's usually the guy.
That's like the ideal thing too.
Yeah,
like,
and I get complete freedom.
the best people to work with are the people that like know your work and they know what you do and just want you to do that.
Yeah, and that's how it works here. He just puts the information into the machine, and I start drawing. We come together.
It's so interesting, and it's so cool that he's so passionate about the history. So he cares enough to go really deep.
Really deep. And he's living a life that he's always dreamt of. You know, when I told you his house is a library. There's books everywhere. Stefan is a Renaissance man. You know, he's a adventurer. His life is very interesting to me. He's more passionate about this project than I am. And that never happens. Because I like my work. I like what I do. But it's great to work with somebody that is even more invested than I am. That is extremely rare. Extremely rare. And I'm very thankful to be in this situation. And it's hard work. It takes a toll on my family. I'm sometimes, I have to finish these very detailed works. And, but it's, I know now that we are in a period of hard work. We're laying the foundation for the project, doing the 3 chapters, the Dutch, Mexico, and then the United States. And then we have a good foundation to start creating volumes of books. Then we have a bundle that can really tell the history to fans, readers.
It makes me as a cannabis, supporter and want to actually support La Crème because of the work you're doing on the back end. Like, honestly, when I hear that and then I fuck with someone's product, I'm like, game time. Like, I support them fully now. Let's go.
I say it in our brochure this year too. Like I say a little bit about when, there's people that buy my prints. My prints sell out. They're not cheap. They're also not too expensive. But it's an investment in art you're making. But
very unique.
But this money you pay to me or to La Crème goes directly into making more of these books and more of these stories. And yes, it feeds my family. But it's the intention. Like when we receive this money, it goes straight into the project. Again, there's no investors. It's unbiased. Us doing our thing, representing cannabis, telling these stories. And I think, if we can keep this going for a few more years, because we do feel pressure for example, last year when they had the raids on the club, that directly affects the project too.
So where are you living full time these days?
I live in the Netherlands, in IJmuiden. It's about half hour outside of Amsterdam. I moved away from the city when we were expecting our first child, and moved away from Amsterdam, and now we live on the coast.
It's interesting how your art too is like the perfect foundation for this project. Your detailed art, in my opinion, the way your art is so detailed, and it reminds me of that stuff where as you zoom in, you go more and more deep into it. It really is a great foundation for the history of cannabis. So like when you think of that, it's like, holy shit, what would that even like? How big is that? And you're like, well, who would do it? Someone that's very detailed. Oh,
it's rewards the reader for looking at it longer. Like almost like a Where's Waldo, like not to
absolutely
not to
no. I
love Where's Waldo.
No, I
do too.
I mean, it's absolutely that. Like there's people that in Holland we have certain comic book artists that are very rough in a way, but a lot of people compare my work. Of course, I was inspired by these guys. They compare my work to those, and they always say, "Oh, I apologize, but I think your work looks like this and this comic book artist." I'm like, "No, that's great." Where's Waldo? Yes, this is Where's Waldo. Please.
It's like Where's Waldo, Art Crumb.
Listen to this one. I once sold an original ink drawing about this big to a guy in Florida. I was in a show there. I never went there, but the painting went there and they bought it there in the gallery. And years later, he sends me the picture of where he has the drawing hanging. And it's in the toilet.
Because he's there most of the day.
No, listen. He says, "Oh, I apologize that it's in the toilet, but it's just such a great spot because I can sit down and look at it for hours." And I was like, "This is amazing. You took the best spot.
I can focus."
Yeah. This is the only place you can take the time in the day.
You could almost did. If you did that as wallpaper, yeah, you'd literally be.
I even like my art to hang in the toilet. It's great.
My one friend has a ton of awesome comic art hanging in his bathroom.
Yeah, it's great.
Do you sell originals, or if someone, like, let's say let's say there's a brand that wanted something done. Do you still do commission work?
At the moment, I'm not taking on any new commission work because I'm just simply too busy. I have a few big projects. With the biggest one is, of course, the grand history of cannabis. I got a collaboration coming up with the Dizzy Duck. I work with a cool weed event called in Holland called the Homegrown Cup, which I do posters for every year. So I have always recurring things and some bigger things going on. But it's just for the coming years. I'm not taking on new work.
I hate not being able to take on stuff. It's hard to say no.
It's really hard to say no. And I really enjoy starting new things. I always, when somebody comes to me with a cool project, I'm like, fuck, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then people say, well, why don't you get some employees? Like, no, because then I can't make art anymore. Then I'm managing. So it's just me and the amount of time I have in the year.
I love how with the one that you have behind you, you even did the border of the painting or of the art.
You mean this?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's epic. Because I was looking at this, I didn't see
this is loose, and that has a little bit of a border, but not as defined as this one.
It's so detailed, man. For everyone listening, like check out Mossy Giant. You have to get into his artwork, and if you really want to go on his Instagram and you dive back into even past the history of cannabis and go into your previous works.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of new fairy tale, trip to trichome forest, buds, living soil goodness coming again, because this, like I said, I have to take breaks from this more serious historical stuff and have some fun and draw plants and big buds and bears and hippies and Volkswagen fans. It's necessary.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when commissions open back up for that. That's sick. I really like your stuff, man. And your stuff, because you had an art opening too, right? An art exhibit I saw
a few weeks ago with friends.
Okay,
yeah, with the London police.
Do you still have that going on, or is that's
still up and hanging? I think it's up for another few weeks. But these are old friends of mine, and it's an artist duo called the London Police. Great street artists. Yeah, a great name. It's like they base it on like music bands, London bands, the London Police, and they've played a big role in my artistic development. That was the first time when I saw artists really living off their art, being successful with their craft and making a serious living, and the way they were dealing. And it's a duo, fire and water. They're complete opposites, but on the canvas together, they work incredibly well. Everybody check out the London Police. They're great. And they've inspired me to take my art more serious, make bigger canvases, challenge myself to get better with every project, and conduct myself also in a way that I can make money and supply my family with food and drink and shelter. The business side of art is sometimes difficult because it's usually you get to talk about very passionate things. When I get together with a grower or the seed bank or that wants to make art, it's always fun. And you almost want to do it for free, but your
collab with Grove Bags is sick.
Yeah. So Lance,
talk about that a little bit.
Many years ago, I did the Future Cannabis Project podcast with Peter from Budgasm.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
he's from California, and he has this really cool podcast. And he saw me drawing one day on an Instagram Live, and he invited me on the show, and we drew and for a few hours, and I talked about what I do. And out of that came a contact. Peter got in touch with Lance from Grove Bags, and we did a quick collaboration. And they gave me like 2 hours to finish the artwork. I'm like, all right, cool. Because they were going to send me 500 bags. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that. Threw together a design. And then Lance was like, oh, let's do a series. And now I think we've done 6 bags. We've done the 1 ounce bag this year. And Sunday we're going to release a collaboration with Grassroots, Toker Poker, Grove Bags. I'm forgetting some snail papers. It's a new hat made by Grove Bags, made out of hemp with artwork on the inside. So the collaboration with Lance and Grove Bags has been very fun. And
it's cool to see.
Yeah. And it's a cool product too.
The Terp Lock technology. We just did a pod with them, and it was really cool. Anytime someone hands me a bag, as soon as I touch it, the Grove Bags have
soft
a feel.
Touch.
Yeah, it's like velvety texture.
Yeah.
And I'm big into visuals and touch. And so when I grabbed that, I'm like, I know immediately it's a Grove Bag. I said, it's so smart for you guys. I know it maybe wasn't by design, but like, it's so smart because every bag I touch from any brand, as soon as I touch it, I'm like, grow bag. And they're like, yeah, I'm like, oh, interesting. And I know preferred, like, proper doinks, good pizza. I mean, on and on. People have handed me the bag and I know immediately. It's not even a question. It becomes like your telltale signature. So it's good that you're working with a company like that also is super passionate.
But I also enjoy that it's been a very informal collaboration. It wasn't like it was a very natural way of collaborating through Peter. Oh, yeah, let's do a few bags, and they just send me 2 boxes full of bags, and they get their bags to give away and sell. That's how we do it.
That's cool, man.
Just a barter, and I like it that way. And I get 2 bags or 3 or 4. Last year I got 3 bags. This year we did the big one and now the hat. It's cool.
What's your studio look like? Is it a lot of other people's art or a lot of your art?
It's a combination. Yeah, I have a lot of books there, a lot of original paintings.
Who inspires you?
Wow, that's such a hard question. I have anything. Growers inspire me. The way they work with their plants, the way they work, what we just talked about, turning a seed into gold. But I have, many influences. But if you go back, it's the old Dutch, not old Dutch, but the European comics. That's what, but also the more illustrative American comics like Robert Crumb and the Freak Brothers series, I think is really cool. I don't really have anything with Marvel or the superhero American stuff.
That's like I read that when I was 12.
Yeah, we really we had access to it, but I was more interested in European comics.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And where can they find Mossy Giant prints? Where can they purchase your products? Like, where can we get more of what we're seeing?
Everything I do, I usually do in drops every year on my website on mossygiant.com. And I'm starting to have some places now where they are also selling some merchandise. And I am in some shops in England with rolling trays, just smoker paraphernalia. But most of the art, the books, are now available on my website. And of course, with the grand history of cannabis, we're also building more portals. And but right now we're in art creation mode and not into selling mode. We got to make this foundation and finish the story about the United States. And then we talk about books and whatever we're going to do. And right now we got to make first.
And you got to hop on Mossy Giant, the Instagram, kind of dive into some of his previous works, because you do breakdowns of you actually creating the art on there, which I love seeing. People
enjoy seeing the process.
So cool, especially because your art, again, it's so detailed. It like unfolds in front of you. It's this whole, it's different than a lot of other stuff you see where you almost, it's unbelievable because the amount of hours too. It's the whole creative process.
There is a certain thing about like we live in a day and age where everything is super fast. Mm-hmm. Everything is here in the touch of in our phone. We have access to everything, to food, to good entertainment. Everything is fast. And I think people enjoy seeing a process that's slow.
And half done. Like when your stuff's like half done, and it's like black and white. And then it's just cool to see, man. Yeah. It's, you see how many hours and the detail that goes into one of these. And then if you want to visit La Crème, come to Barcelona. Like you have to see this in person. You really do. And get with Mossy Giant.
Yeah. And come experience this city. This was the last Cannabis, or will be the last Cannabis. Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Now it's going to be in Bilbao, which is over by Madrid. I saw.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because like one of the biggest draws about Barcelona or about Cannabis is Barcelona. And then now flip that. And I also go to like, damn, it's kind of hurt the coffee shops or the social clubs. Because man, absolutely. When you go and you see a line out the door from the minute they open some of these to the minute they close during Cannabis week, that's going to be gone. That it's just, man, it's like, for what reason? We were talking about prohibition earlier and when it started, and it's kind of a form of like, why wouldn't they just like, why not more of this and not have to pick and choose? And I guess
still
it's
so much stigma. There's still stigma on everything. It influences every law in the United States. Like
even here,
the excuse, and here, everything.
Yeah, no, it's
people are unwilling to just not punish us for some reason.
What's amazing about Barcelona is you'll be walking down the corridors, and there's just a door, and you're like, I wonder what's behind this. Then there's just hundreds of those, and then behind a bunch of them are these unbelievable social clubs. And like we pulled up out front and we're looking and we're like, what's where's the door? And we literally turned to the left and we were standing right in front of the, like, that's how low key everything is.
I find that very cool about it too.
If you know,
you want it to be open. You want it to have windows, but right now that it's so secretive adds to the myth of it. You know, it's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, yeah, man, it's been honestly been a pleasure to be able to sit down with you to look at the art. We're going to overlay a bunch of stuff. If you're on the YouTube, you're going to see a Mossy Giant, and we're also going to see a lot of the art and from everyone that was on the pod. It's been awesome, man.
Man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. And I think, you know, you're used to talking to growers and cannabis activists. Now you're talking to artists. And I think we had a really cool conversation. Yeah. I really appreciate that.
And you really got to see it to believe it, because your stuff's like stunning and it's so detailed. I'm glad we were able to make it to the club, because to see a 30-foot representation of your art is crazy. Yeah, man. Mossy Giant, first smoke of the day, live from Cannabis Week at La Creme. If you're in Barcelona, like, what are you doing, man? Get the fuck over here. Like, smoke some isolator, throw it with some fire. We're smoking rosin in the back. We got some flame. Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah, that's right. For real.
Staying mossy.
Yeah. Awesome, man. First smoke of the day, Mossy Giant, La Crème Gràcia. We're out. Peace.
Later.
First Smoke family, if you want more video, unreleased content, stuff we can't put on YouTube, you want early drops, weeks and weeks in advance, FSOTD.com gets you all that. You become part of the family, you get hooked up with early content, you get unreleased content we can't put out on YouTube because we get age restricted and we get strikes, the whole deal. FSOTD.com gets you hooked up like family. But if you just want to keep watching, here we go. Let's let another one roll.